Good afternoon and welcome to this week's episode of Safety Culture Solutions, sponsored by Safety Culture Strategies. I'm Mike Kinney, your podcast host. This podcast is committed to providing our viewers with insight regarding tools, techniques, and processes to assist any organization with enhancing their safety culture. In addition, we will routinely have featured guests, including industry leaders, authors, and business owners, offering their perspective on a series of safety culture topics. You can reach us via our Safety Culture Strategies Facebook page or our website, www.scstrat.com, or via an email at mike@scstrat.com. Without any further ado, it is my pleasure, true pleasure, to introduce today's guest, Mr. Rich Hopkins. He is president of Thrillseekers Unlimited. Affectionately known as the King of Extreme, Rich Hopkins has over 30 years experience in the film industry as a stuntman, stunt coordinator, professional driver, and stunt safety officer. In the late 80s, Rich had the good fortune to be working with that motivational pioneer, Tony Robbins. Rich worked his way up from the mailroom to the production coordinator for Robbins Research International. Rich has also had the opportunity to learn from other professional speakers, which provide the catalyst to pursue a career in the film and television industry. Based on his knowledge of action sports and all that background, the skill set it takes, he subsequently moved to Las Vegas and formed Thrillseekers Unlimited in 1992. Rich is one of the few individuals to truly excel in the stunts that he specializes in. All our viewers and listeners, check this out. Examples include fire burns, high falls, okay, safety guys are all getting twitchy here, zip lines, air rams, wire work, weapons, car transfers, stunt driving, and stunt fighting. Accolades regarding his expertise include those from the Wall Street Journal, USA Today, legendary lunas Chris Angel, and Sir Richard Branson. By the way, Rich has performed or coordinated over 300 productions, including thousands of individual stunts, with a 100% safety record. This noteworthy achievement is directly due to Rich's commitment to have a safety culture on the set that anticipates potential hazards and applying methods to ensure everyone's safety. He's also contributed countless hours to charities throughout the United States, especially those that help children. Examples include Big Brothers Big Sisters, Make-A-Wish, DARE, Candlelighters Childhood Cancer Foundation, and Spread the Word, Nevada. Rich is also a driving instructor for Driver's Edge, teaching defensive and evasive driving techniques to teens. Driving instructor defensive side for the city of Las Vegas, Team Pain. And Rich, I got to tell you, it is a thrill to have you on the show with me, brother. It's good to have you here, man.
Great to see you again,
and
as always.
As always, we kind of go back, and now I do appreciate if you see us on camera together. It kind of looks like a Doobie Brothers reunion going on this week. Yeah. But we go way back, and I've talked to a lot of people, and I've always been fascinated with discussions you've had, and what I see in your newsletters. You kind of begin and end all of this with safety. Talk about safety on the set. So for you, what do you think? And again, the phenomenal 30 years experience, 100% success rate, thousands of stunts. So what do you think's contributed to your success?
Well, safety is the number one concern, and the fact that I actually like and enjoy people. I don't want to lose anybody, so I think the other motivating factor is, in my industry, in stunts, filming, whatever, if you lose somebody, it's probably a career ender. So yeah. That's a secondary motivation. The primary motivation is that we all go home at night.
We all go home at night.
That's right.
Perfect. So from a safety culture perspective, I say leader, maybe it could be a set producer, whatever the right phrases are. What do you think is the number one skill they need to practice for a positive safety culture?
From a producer point of view is their vetting process.
Okay.
And making sure that they have somebody that's true and tested, I guess. Mm-hmm. There's a lot of up and coming stunt performers that are dubbing themselves as a stunt coordinator.
Oh, really? Okay.
The stunt industry is extremely fraternal, and I didn't have the good fortune of being born into a stunt family. I had to kind of get in the hard way, and that's perseverance and nose to the grindstone, learning my craft. It's more about mouth shut, ears open kind of thing. Mm-hmm. And then just longevity of 30 plus years being in the business has afforded me a good reputation. Wow. So from a producer's point of view, again, it goes back to vetting. And nowadays, a producer could put his, nephew on and go, "You're the stunt coordinator." Well, nowadays it's a little different. You've got to be vetted. Like, unless I'm working with a previous production company or studio that already knows me and I've already been vetted, what I've got to do with a new broker or insurance underwriter is I've got to submit all of my information, prior insurance documentation, showing I've been insured. Basically, I have to prove that I know what I'm doing.
Got what we call reps and certs, right? Yeah.
More or less.
Right. Excellent. So, and it's one thing that struck me as we were setting up these interviews, in the world of safety and a safety guy. So if I have people on a 4-story building, my whole goal is to make sure they don't fall off. So we're going to have some guardrails, we're going to have harnesses, we're going to have ropes. In your world, you want them to fall off. So it's a total different construct as far as the work being performed, but I think ironically some of the same controls are in place, or the same techniques to ensure you can do that safely.
Well, absolutely. Say there's a scene where there's going to be an explosion. I've got 3 of my guys that are going to go off the building. Okay. Yes, as you said, I want my guys to go off the building. I don't want the camera people.
Very good.
Very or
good.
the gaffer. So basically, my guys know their cues. They know where the airbags are, depending on, like you said, a 4-story building. Okay, we're going to have an airbag, some big pit mats, spotters down there. But the other thing, too, is I'm going to make sure that all of the support crew up on the takeoff zone and down below are safe. They're, we've got daisy chains on them. They're locked into something.
Perfect.
There's a misnomer of a stunt coordinator is that I'm just in charge of my crew and making sure me and my guys are safe. That's not true. My job is to make sure everybody on set is safe, from the director down to the production assistant staff, catering, whatever. So it's a big responsibility.
So pull that string a little bit. So when you gather that day to do the 3 guys jumping off the tall building, do you have some type of an initial meeting to talk about what you're going to run through that, what the process is that day, the type of activities involved?
Absolutely. And sometimes, depending on how large of a sequence it is, there may be things that lead up to it, like a shootout. They're running, they're going to jump off a building. We would probably practice that with just my stunt team on a previous day.
Wow, good.
Now then, the day of, we will have an entire crew safety meeting to go over, even though everybody's already got the shot list, the key people have the storyboards, everybody that needs to know what's going on is going on. Like catering doesn't need to know we got 3 guys going off a 4-story building, but everybody gets the storyboards and all that. We have a safety meeting prior to each stunt, telling exactly what's going to happen. If anything looks like it's gone sideways or does go sideways, nobody goes in except me and the EMTs. Like we don't want a whole barrage of people coming in. So there are procedures and protocols that have been put in place over the years.
Perfect.
And they're pretty stringent. So again, I don't want to lose anybody. I want to go have some fun, create some great action, and then maybe go have a beer with our buddies.
Yes. And it's, again, an area that you and I have in common. My whole goal working with the companies, looking at their culture and how they have, and everybody engaged. Everybody go home safe. Yeah. Enjoy the work you're doing. Have some passion in it. And then, because that old adage, if you love what you do, you'll never work a day in your life, right?
That's true.
And Rich, because every time we talk, I go, "How you doing?" You go, "Man, I'm doing great." And I said, so for everybody, it's just, when you look at the world of safety, it's so much more than just a hard hat or a pair of safety glasses. Like you and I have talked, it's more kind of, it's like a state of mind that you're working together. And you and I talked the other day, and you have a version of, like the phrase I would use, be your brother's keeper, right? Where you guys kind of keep an eye on it. Can you summarize that a little bit too?
Well, yeah, we were talking the other day about, say, rigging per se.
Yeah.
I've been doing it for 30 years, but I never get complacent. We joke around with new up-and-coming stunt people, stunt riggers, stunt coordinators that know enough about the business and the procedures to just be dangerous. By that meaning complacency, or what we call the sophomore syndrome. Okay, so somebody comes in, I've done this, 24 times or whatever. It doesn't matter. 4 eyes and 2 brains are better than 1. And if somebody tells me, hey, I got this, I've done this forever, I know what I'm doing, that's the first person I'm going to go check their work.
There you go.
Okay. And with that in mind as well, if I'm working on something over here, I'm going to be like, hey, come over here and check my stuff. We got to check each other, cross-check. So, you know, there's no room for error. You know, it's one thing, like my buddies that do a lot of convention rigging up speaker systems and things that are hanging over people. Well, that can be dangerous. If that thing comes loose, falls, whatever, you got people down below. Well, what's going to fall if I mess up is probably my people, because we're rigging human beings, not speakers. So, and they're both just as important, but being complacent can bite you in the rear end.
Wow,
So.
exactly. So when you kind of get used to it, well, you know, I've done this 100 times, let's not worry about it. In your world, that's one thing. So, okay, that's one you want to keep an X around, because essentially nothing in your world, candidly, is really routine. Is that a fair statement?
Well, every job is different.
Right.
I mean, we could be rigging a descender, which the descender is basically, you know, a drum descender, depending on how you're doing it. But it's what you're rigging it to or off of or whatever. So, which is cool for me, because if I had to do the same job every day over and over, I'd lose my mind. So it's great to have a new challenge. Hey, we're going to rig this off the Palms. We're going to rig this off the Renaissance Tower. We're going to, and you know, what are we going to rig to? What are our safety calculations? Let's get the building engineer in here. What are the load capacities? It's like, there's so much. It's funny too, because like, there's this weird thing about stunt people being dumb as a box of rocks, and there's a few that are, but there's a lot of math and calculations, and like stunt coordination and rigging is very mathematical.
Certainly.
So.
And what strikes me too is this, the incredible work you guys do, and it's really, really, really dangerous if it's not planned and executed appropriately. But a lot of it, you know, nobody knows you did it. Right, because kind of if you do it well, they shouldn't know, right? It becomes seamless, right?
Well, like for example, one of my specialties is doing full body burns, fire burns.
Fire burn. Okay. It was slow. You said fire burn. So for the uninitiated, I mean, like you're just taking your whole body and putting some type of acceler on it and striking a match.
Getting lit on fire.
Oh, kind of like we might have like that picture behind us right now, right? So that might be you by chance.
That's me. Yeah.
Wow. So that's got
barbecue tricks.
Barbecue tricks. So that's got a whole bunch of planning in it, obviously.
Yeah.
My goodness.
Well,
I joke about it, but yeah.
No, there's a ton of planning, experience. You've got to know how to turn so you're not turning into your own fire and stuff like that. The one thing about the fire stunts is that usually it's called a panic burn. So like, you know, somebody lights you on fire. Well, you wouldn't be, you know, walking around going, hey, I'm on fire. It's called a panic burn. So you'd be like, ah. Well, the weird thing is, especially when you're going to go hit your B mark where you're going to get put out, people don't know if you're really injured.
Oh, good point.
Yeah. Because you're supposed to,
you're
acting it too. So until you go down and you're put out and you actually give the thumbs up, the crew's usually pretty gripped. I mean, they're like, oh, is he alive? Is he dead? Is he burnt to a crisp? You know,
wow,
so if I do a really good job acting, people will think, oh, my God, these guys dead. You know, it's like.
And so again, it goes back to that initial meeting. So in this case, here's the signal that you're going to give when it's all done that everything's okay. Yeah. And until that happens, they're going to be really practicing some extra precautions and see if they need to be rending some aid.
Well, yeah, there's a lot of hand signals with fire burns because you know, you can't really say, hey, I'm still going. You know, you can tap out or whatever. So every stunt has its own nuances.
Yeah. So it kind of leads into a great question before we go to our commercial. So what do you consider to be one of your most dangerous stunts in your career? Now, that's a long list, I understand, but if you had maybe like that one that kind of bubbles to the top, what would that be, sir?
Well, the fire is always dangerous. Sure. It gets routine. I've done over 50 now, so it is routine, but still I keep myself in check that there's always the one that could bite me. You know, you need to know where your wind's coming from. You want to make sure your wind's in front of you. There's so many little tiny things about that, but I think the one that comes to mind would be the Spider-Man stunt. I think we touched on that a little earlier.
Oh, there it is right behind us.
Yeah,
Wow.
yeah, that's
Wow.
that's not CGI, folks. That's me hanging off
So
a
that-
1,000-foot
So you're
skyscraper.
so that's 1,000 feet carrying the 9. That's about a 100-story building. Yeah,
Pretty
kinda.
close, yeah. It's in Dallas, Texas.
Goodness gracious.
This was in 2009 on Halloween Day, and I was hired by Blockbuster. Remember the video stores?
yeah.
that are no longer in existence.
Back in the day. Yeah.
Blockbuster signed a deal with, I believe, Sony, whoever it was, to be the first video carriers to release Spider-Man in 2003. So they hired me to put on the Spidey suit and do this big PR opportunity on Halloween Day. And the stunt was gnarly enough as it was. It was originally designed by my friend Lane Levitt and myself to have 2 lines coming down to the pick point of my harness, but I wasn't going to be able to get the lateral movement across the building that I wanted, because I wanted to be able to move freely and kind of pendulum and run across the building. With a 2-line pick, that was going to be hard to do. It was going to put my body off kilter. So I said, look, I trust you guys, because it all comes down, like, I'm the one doing this stunt, but it's really my guys, my team. And I brought in like 5 of the best riggers that I knew.
Perfect.
And it was pretty wild. It was a little nerve-wracking with only one 11 rope, and there was some shards of aluminum sticking off of the rails that hold the window washing unit in place. And I was just thinking about, if you pull on a rope and you start touching it, just touching it with a razor blade, it can start fraying depending on how much tension is put on it. I'm like, please just keep my line off of those shards of aluminum sticking out. Because the other kicker was, it was Halloween Day, like I said, and they bust in all these little kids to watch Spider-Man come down the building.
Well,
and
of course.
I had to say a prayer before I took off, that please don't let me splatter in front of all these kids. I mean, it wouldn't bother me much at that point, but it would traumatize 1,000 kids that are watching Spider-Man.
So on that one, just real quick, so you've got those peninsula shards. That'd be one of the things you guys talked about. Watch where your line is. So again, so I'm visioning you're 1,000 feet in the air, but you already think about, okay, how can I move across the building to make it even look more spidery, if lack of a better phrase, right?
Yeah.
So, but again, the way walk through the process. Tell you what, don't anyway, buddy, go away. We're far from done. We're going to take a quick commercial break, and we shall return. Spidey's in the house.
Safety Culture Strategies provides world-class safety culture and safety program management consultative services for clients throughout the United States. Whether your company is pursuing Voluntary Protection Program STAR designation, ISO 45001 certification, or considering a comprehensive review of your current safety programs and processes, Safety Culture Strategies brings hands-on experience combined with a unique perspective that readily translates from senior management to task-level personnel. This collective skill set provides you with a very insightful health check of your overall safety management system that can also assist with reducing injuries and attrition, as well as increasing profitability. Safety Culture Strategies is also certified to provide Ziegler Institute employee engagement training and leadership coaching. When combined with established relationships with federal and state regulators, Safety Culture Strategies is uniquely positioned to assist the safety culture efforts of any company. For additional information, visit www.scstrat.com or call us at 702-780-1410. After all, every company has a safety culture, but is it the culture you want?
And we're back. We're with Rich Hopkins, Thrillseekers Unlimited, talking lots of stuff going on. So this is not your first rodeo. Over 30 years in the practice. So probably the last maybe like 10 years or so. What kind of changes have you seen how safety culture is perceived on the set?
Well, I think we touched on it a little bit earlier, where the production companies and studios are a little more stringent
On who they bring on board.
Who they bring on board,
Okay.
because, again, some producers are pretty complacent, and they'll just be, I'll bring on my cousin's uncle's dog to be the stunt coordinator, and You know, it doesn't, like with legitimate productions, that doesn't fly, and that's pretty much my wheelhouse. The thing that's bothering me lately is, again, the weekend warriors that are, you know, out shooting, no budget, you know, projects that are bringing in their cousin's uncle's dog to coordinate, and they're going to hurt somebody here in Vegas. I always tell producers that call me up and they say, hey, we want to do this. They get, you know, they always have great ideas. We want to flip this car and have it blow up and you get out on fire. And I'm like, okay, that's about $10,000 right there. Well, that's our whole budget.
Okay.
I'm like, well, then call me when you have the budget, because that's what it costs. Yeah, I just did the new commercial for the new Virgin Hotel that Richard Branson bought.
Right.
And we had 10 drivers going across the dry lake bed and stuff. And I mean, it was $1 million commercial for a 30-second spot. Or it might have been a minute and then they cut a 30 out of it or something. But, you know, I'm talking to producers. If you don't have the money to do something, don't do it. You know, because your $10,000 budget is what our catering budget was on this 30-second commercial, and you're doing that $10,000 movie. You know, and, you know, I never try to frown on anybody's ideas or like the upcoming newbies, but, you know, I always tell directors and producers, you want to, whether you hire me or somebody else, make sure you hire somebody that's competent and really cares about the safety of the people and your production, because when you're standing in front of a judge trying to explain how this guy's paralyzed or this guy's got, you know, second-degree burns and he looks like a mummy, and you're about to lose everything that you have, you know, keep that in mind.
And you know, I've worked with organizations where they, for the best intentions, well, maybe you know, we don't have as much budget as we should for safety, whatever that means. And unfortunately, when they have a serious incident, God forbid a fatality, and I'm not being snarky, don't get me wrong, they usually find the budget to fix it. And I said, okay, it's a part of that mindset is having talent like you. You're a senior professional at this. You have a high level of regard, well-deserved in the industry, saying here's the approach you need to be taken. Before we go to the next one, I've been kind of observing the ball cap you're sporting, and it has ironclad on the face of it.
Right. Who
is ironclad, and why do we care?
Ironclad is a glove manufacturing company.
Oh, cool.
And I've known Ed Yeager started it. God, it's got to be over 15 years ago now. And I knew them from the action sports world. Well, I used to host a TV show called Planet X, and we'd see them at trade shows and, you know, whether it was action sports retailer or, you know, any of those type of shows. So just through Planet X and just knowing them, I've just stayed in touch with them over the years, and now they've got some great new gloves. Can I show a couple?
Of course you can.
Aaron, I got
A little show and tell for us today.
Well, these are these I just got. Okay, I haven't even taken the tags off. These I've been sporting, the Kongs, kind of crazy looking, but you know, they're definitely heavy duty gloves, so I got to give them some love.
Excellent. So that you're comfortable using, it's good product, and it's got some good hand protection for you as well.
Well, they handle every part of the industrial world, like from oil rig.
Wow.
You know, from coal miners, oil rigs. I mean, if you look at the catalog I gave you, there's like iron workers, and I mean, they have probably 300-400, maybe 500 different pairs of gloves for different industries.
So they're kind of the glove guy.
They're the heavy duty glove guy. You're not going to find these at Home Depot. I mean, you're not. They're
excellent. So a couple more questions before we get the tail end of time. Always flies when we be together, man.
Yeah.
So from your personal perspective, we talked about leaders and what's going on. What do you think has contributed to your personal success to have this incredible pedigree, and yet you've been able to do everything safely?
I would say my willingness to learn. Even 30 years in, I'm still learning. I could be on a set and learn. Every time I'm on a set, I'll learn something new, whether it's directly related to stunts or some new camera technique or new camera moves. That's what I love about my business. I mean, I'm self-diagnosed like OCD and ADD, so I would completely lose my mind if I had some kind of routine job. So like my job literally is different every single time. From prep to shooting, everything's totally different, and I love it.
So does the focus on continuing to learn?
Absolutely. Oh yeah, yeah.
Got one last one for you, then we're going to summarize
Okay.
a couple of things.
Okay.
So you're going to be in front of a large group and you have to talk to them. Now, this never happened to you. So,
right.
So if it's envision, this is like a lot of young talent who's coming in the stunt industry, young stunt men, young stunt women. And so you can probably talk to them about what Thrillseekers is about. So at the end of your discussion with them, what's 2 to 3 things you want to make sure they leave with?
Well, I actually do. I have done some workshops with upcoming stunt people, and the main thing is just, and I think I touched on it earlier, it's more about keeping your mouth shut and your eyes and ears open. Learn, you want to, the stunt world is hard to get into. Again, it's fairly fraternal. You got to kind of know somebody. You don't, like actors go to auditions with casting people and all that. Stunt people aren't hired like that. We don't do a casting for stunt people. And, for doubles, I'll submit certain people, but pretty much it comes down on me of who I think and know is the right person for the job, and then it's up to me to tell production, this is our guy, or these are our 2 top choices. So for me, it was all about persistence, because I didn't have a backdoor way in. So I was called everything in the book 30 years ago, because I came from the extreme sports or action sports world, and there were like veteran stunt guys that were like, I've been jumping off of stagecoaches in the cactus since you were knee-high to a grasshopper, you whippersnapper, and calling me like a newbie wannabe daredevil, and like everything 30-year-old, you'll never make it, you don't know anybody, and I'm like, that just drove me harder.
Good for you.
So I tell new people, learn your craft, be humble.
Oh, look at that. I like that.
And be a good listener, and learn how to follow directions.
Okay, so to kind of summarize this, because we always like to have some takeaways of little pearls of thought because having professionals like you come in the studio, it's kind of getting a drink of water from a fire hose. There's all this great information.
Yeah.
So for the viewers, if you take a few little cliff notes, the producer, it's important they vet the talent they're going to bring on, especially for this key role as a stunt coordinator or the set safety officer. You got to make sure you got the right people, right? You got to watch out for the sophomore syndrome. Right? Yeah, I'm a brand new, but I think I know enough, so I know everything. You don't have to tell me what to be doing. Willing to learn and being humble is very, very important. Yeah. And probably the biggest one for me out of all this today is maintain persistence.
Yeah.
And probably the first couple times you went through the door, it isn't like they gave you $1 million check. They're saying, if you're delivering groceries, go in the back door, right? So there's that persistence, and if it's something you want to have part of your pedigree, well, then you got to work for it a little bit. I want to thank you for being with us. And this concludes this episode of Safety Culture Solutions. I want to thank our featured guest Rich Hopkins, once again for being on the show and sharing his valued insight regarding safety culture on the set. Please increase awareness of our podcast by clicking on the subscribe, like, or share buttons. Also encourage you to send us any questions you may have, topics you'd like to see addressed in future podcasts, requests for featured guests, or other items of interest. These podcasts can also be found on the Safety Cultures Strategies website, www.scstrat.com. In closing, I want to share the following quote from whom else, and honor my great guest today, Tony Robbins. Live with passion. Until next time, wishing you all the best of your safety culture journey. Bye-bye.